Prince Caspian is a high fantasy novel for children by C.S.Lewis, published by Geoffrey Bles in 1951. It was the second published of 7 novels in the Chronicles of Narnia, and Lewis had finished writing it in 1949, before the first book was out. It is volume 4 in recent editions of the series, which are sequenced according to Narnia history. Like the others, it was illustrated by Pauline Baynes, and her work has been retained in many later editions. Prince Caspian features return to Narnia by the 4 Pevensey children of the first novel, about 1 year later in England but 1,300 years later in Narnia. It is the only one of the Chronicles where men dominate Narnia. The talking animals and mythical beings are oppressed and some may be in danger. The English siblings are legendary kings and queens of Narnia, whom the refugee Prince Caspian magically recalls for assistance. As children once again, Macmillan US published an American edition within the calendar year. Prince Caspian has been adapted and filmed as 2 episodes of BBC television series in 1989 and as a feature film in 2008. Plot summary. While standing on a British railway station, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy Pevensey are magically whisked away to a beach near an old and ruined castle. They determine the ruin is Cair Paravel, where they ruled as the kings and queens of Narnia, and discover the treasure vault where Peter's sword and shield, Susan's bow and arrows, and Lucy's bottle of magical cordial and dagger are stored. Susan's horn for summoning help is missing, as she left it in the woods the day they returned to England after the prior visit to Narnia. Although only a year has passed in England, centuries have passed in Narnia. The children intervene to rescue Trumpkin the dwarf from soldiers who have brought him to the ruins to drown him. Trumpkin tells the children that since the disappearance, a race of men called Telmarines have invaded Narnia, driving the talking beasts into the wilderness and pushing even the memory underground. Narnia is ruled by King Miraz and his wife Queen Pruna Prisamir, but the rightful king is Miratz's nephew, Prince Caspian, who has gained the support of the old Narnians. Miraz usurped the throne by killing his brother Caspian's father, King Caspian IX. Miraz tolerated Caspian as heir until his own son was born, Prince Caspian, until that point ignorant of his uncle's deeds, escaped from Miratz's castle with the aid of his tutor Dr. Cornelius, who schooled him in the lore of old Narnia and gave him Queen Susan's horn. Caspian fled into the forest but was knocked unconscious when his horse bolted. He awoke in the den of a talking badger, truffle hunter, and 2 dwarfs, Nicobrick and Trumpkin, who accepted Caspian as the king. The badger and dwarves took Caspian to meet many creatures of old Narnia. During a midnight council on Dancing Lawn, Dr. Cornelius arrived to warn them of the approach of King Miraz and his army. He urged them to flee to Aslan's house in the great woods near Cair Paravel. The Telmarines followed the Narnians to the house, and after several skirmishes the Narnians appeared close to defeat. At a second war council, they discuss whether to use Queen Susan's horn, and whether it would bring Aslan of the kings and queens of the Golden Age. Not knowing where help would arrive, they dispatched Pattertwig the squirrel to Lantern Waste and Trumpkin to Cair Paravel. It is then that Trumpkin was captured by the Telmarines and rescued by the Pevenseys. Trumpkin and the Pevenseys make their way to Caspian. They try to save time by traveling up Glasswater Creek, but lose the way. Lucy sees Aslan and wants to follow where he leads, but the others do not believe her and follow their original course, which becomes increasingly difficult. In the night, Aslan calls Lucy and tells her she must awaken the others and insist they follow her on Aslan's path. When the others obey, they begin to see Aslan's shadow, then Aslan himself. Aslan sends Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin ahead to Aslan's house to deal with treachery brewing there, and follows with Susan and Lucy. Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin enter Aslan's house. They overhear Nickelbrick and his confederates, a hag and a werewolf, trying to convince Caspian, Cornelius, and Truffle Hunter to help them resurrect the White Witch in hopes of using her power to defeat Miraz. A fight ensues, and Nickelbrick and his comrades are slain. Peter challenges Miraz to single combat. The army of the victor in this duel will be considered the victor in the war. Miraz accepts the challenge, goaded by Lords Glozal and Caspian. Miraz loses the combat, but Glozal and Caspian declare that the Narnians have cheated and stabbed the king in the back while he was down. They command the Telmarine army to attack, and in the commotion that follows, Glozal stabs Miraz in the back. Aslan, accompanied by Lucy and Susan, summons the gods Bacchus and Silenus, and with the help brings the woods to life. The gods and awakened trees turn the tide of battle and send the Telmarines fleeing, discovering themselves trapped at the Great River, where the bridge has been destroyed by Bacchus. The Telmarines surrender. Aslan gives the Telmarines a choice of staying in Narnia under Caspian or returning to Earth, their original home. After one volunteer disappears through the magic door created by Aslan, the Pevensies go through to reassure the other Telmarines. Though Peter and Susan reveal to Edmund and Lucy that they're too old to return to Narnia, the Pevensies find themselves back at the railway station. Characters: Lucy Pevensie, the youngest Pevensie child, is the first to see Aslan again. Edmund Pevensie is the third Pevensie child. Unlike his older siblings, he trusts Lucy's sighting of Aslan, pointing out that in the first adventure she turned out to be right and he ended up looking silly. Peter Pevensie, the oldest of the Pevensie siblings, is High King of Narnia. Susan Pevensie is the second oldest of the Pevensie children. She uses a bow and arrow. Prince Caspian, the rightful Telmarine king, who becomes King of Narnia. He reappears in the next two books in the series, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and The Silver Chair, and makes a brief appearance in the end of the last battle. Aslan, the Great Lion, who created Narnia. Miraz, Caspian's uncle, usurped the throne of the Telmarines. So long as Miraz has no son, he tolerates Caspian as heir, but when a son is born he moves to eliminate Caspian. He fights the old Narnians, who support Caspian, and accepts a challenge to single combat with Peter to settle the matter, but he is killed treacherously by Lord Glozal after the duel. Trumpkin, a red dwarf who helps Caspian defeat Miraz. When he is captured by Miraz's soldiers and taken to Cair Paravel to be drowned, he is freed by the Pevensie children and leads them to Caspian. At the beginning of the novel he is entirely skeptical about the existence of Aslan and the ancient kings and queens, but learns better in the course of the story. Dr. Cornelius, half-dwarf and half-human, is tutor to Caspian and aids in the Narnians' defeat of the Telmarines. Repied Sheep, a talking mouse, is a fearless swordsman and a staunch supporter of Aslan and Caspian. Nickelbrick, a black dwarf in Caspian's army, resists fighting alongside Caspian. Together with a hag and a werewolf, he plots to raise the White Witch against the Telmarines through black magic, but all three are killed by Caspian and his allies. Truffle Hunter, a talking badger, holds faith with Aslan and old Narnia, and aids Prince Caspian in his struggle against Miraz. Bacchus and Silenus, Narnian forest gods. Queen Pruna Prismia, Miraz's wife. Lord Caspian and Lord Glozal, lords of Telma. After being insulted by Miraz, they manipulate him into accepting Peter's challenge. They cry treachery when Miraz falls, and Glozal secretly stabs him in the back. Caspian is beheaded by Peter as the all-out battle begins, but Lewis does not mention the fate of Glozal. Themes. The two major themes of the story are courage and chivalry, and, as Lewis himself said in a letter to an American girl, the restoration of the true religion after a corruption. The Telmarine conquest of Narnia, as depicted in the book, is in many ways similar to the historical Norman conquest of England, though there is no precise parallel in actual English history to the specific events of this book. The end result, Old Narnians and Telmarines becoming a single people and living together in harmony, is similar to the historical process of Saxons and Normans eventually fusing into a single English people. Adaptations. The BBC adapted Prince Caspian in 2 episodes of the 1989 series of the Chronicles of Narnia, the second in the series of films from Walt Disney Pictures and Walden Media titled The Chronicles of Narnia. Prince Caspian was released in the US on the 16th of May 2008. The UK release date was the 26th of June 2008. The book was the inspiration for a song of the same name on the Fish album Billy Breathes. The script for a stage adaptation was written by Irina Karadis and first performed in 2007.